Siamo in compagnia del professor Wackernagel, siamo sempre qui all'Hotel Gife a Roma in questa 2 giorni organizzata da Green Accord e da Esseri Italia. 2 giorni dove si discute dell'informazione, della comunicazione legata all'ambiente. E qui con noi abbiamo il professor Wackernagel che è l'ideatore dell'impronta ecologica. E il professore ha già incontrato nell'anno 2004 Green Accord. Professore, buongiorno. Che cosa è cambiato dal 2004 ad oggi sull'impronta ecologica dell'uomo sul pianeta Terra?
2004 is just 20 years ago. We started doing our national calculations and global calculations in 1997, and by the year 2004 we already kind of matured to some extent. It has improved since. When we look back, the results for the same year are still about the same. But if you compare over the years, back then in 2004, we probably had an overshoot, I would have to look it up exactly, but of roughly like 35% more than what Earth can renew. By today we are over 70%, about 75% of overshoot. That means we're using like 1.7 Earth, but back in 2004, as today, we still have only one planet. That hasn't changed that much. Now we use over 1.7 Earth to support what we do. The impact is also an important thing. It's not just is it 1.7 or 1.3. Even if we maintain that 1.3 forever, it doesn't work. It's like with spending money. You cannot spend money more than you earn forever. If you have a lot of money in your bank account, you can spend more than what you earn for some time. But the question is really the following. Are we going to move out of overshoot by disaster or by design? These are the choices. So far it seems like we have chosen disasters. We had 2 main disasters that produced a little bit of dip in the ecological footprint over the last 20 years. One is the financial crisis, and we see it particularly in the countries around the Mediterranean like Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy, also to some extent Ireland, which is not in the Mediterranean, but they also had quite significant physical dips in their ability to consume through the financial crisis. These were the countries, probably worldwide, in percentage points, most strongly affected by the financial crisis of 2008 and then stretched out to a few years later. And then also we remember the other crisis, COVID-19, that in its initial phase just massively dropped CO2 emissions just because everything was in lockdown. That was in the first half year of 2020. Then after that suddenly it kind of went up again, but it slowed down a little bit economic activities, so we have been plateauing a little bit at a high level of 1.7 Earth for the last few years, but it's still very high. So the point is not only how much we use overshoot, but for how long we do it. It's a cumulative impact. And what we start to realize, what we also knew back in 2004, but because of the cumulative effect, and then now we're 20 years later, the time has become shorter. So now we are at the point, I think that's different from 2004, where the time to react, the inertia of our infrastructure, like how slowly infrastructure adapts, is so much slower than the future comes towards us because of this cumulative effect. It's not just how much we emit every year. We're here close to a swimming pool. People drown in a swimming pool, not by how much water goes into the swimming pool, but how high the water is in the swimming pool. We have filled up the swimming pool higher, and our ability to swim in that swimming pool, to use that metaphor, is not very strong. So we're already late in some levels. It's never too late because it's not as black and white, but we are late in adjusting our infrastructure to the predictable future because we know any scenario we can imagine what that can be will be one of more climate change and resource constraints. We don't know exactly the balance between the two, but in each one of them, objects, whether they are cities, whether they're countries, whether they're companies, whether they're products that are not ready for that future, just will not be as valuable. Valuable means they won't be as able to operate. They won't be able to generate value for us. They will lose in value. So it's a very simple thing. What is valuable in that predictable future? Why are we not focusing our efforts to strengthen those and not anymore just invest in things that have no future?
Esri Italia in questi 2 giorni ci ha fatto vedere una grande tecnologia, cioè quella di riuscire attraverso nuovi sistemi di rilevazione satellitare, anche ci ha fatto vedere come è possibile calcolare il consumo del suolo. Professor Wackernagel, un'ultima domanda, ecco, sul ruolo della comunicazione. La gente non sente il problema dell'inquinamento, dell'overshot, come ha detto lei nell'intervento in sala, ecco, quindi assume un ruolo molto importante quello del comunicatore, che deve far capire quanto sia necessario cambiare rotta, cambiare strada per salvare il pianeta.
I mean, it's useful to understand where we are and how far we need to go. Even more useful is to understand why there are benefits in becoming active. I think that's something that was interesting in the evolution of electric cars. That's a big difference since 2004. Not that electric cars will save us; they make too little of a difference. But still, it has been a shift from like the combustion engine to kind of the electric car that is quite dramatic. Too slow, but dramatic. And there, the communication was also clear. It was the new electric cars. They were not sold as something worse, but something better. They can accelerate better. They are even cooler. So they became a status symbol, and people wanted them. Now, apply that to general communication. Obviously, communication has to be accurate, otherwise it's false. So it has to be accurate. It also has to be relevant, because otherwise it's irrelevant. These things we know. But just these 2 things alone, without the third conditions, I believe are counterproductive. So the third condition is they also have to be empowering. People have to feel, wow, I'm better off knowing that. If we consider the environmental crisis or whatever it is as inconvenient, or it's kind of something we don't want to know about, more people will fight the information than embrace it. How can we translate the information in something and people say, wow, this helps me make better decisions, this helps me protect myself, my family, my city, my company, my country better? Because protecting ourselves so we can prepare ourselves for that future that comes is the most noble, most effective, most productive way, not just for ourselves but for the world. We will build islands of areas that can operate, and they help to strengthen the world. There's no downside to it.